So you feel invested, because if you aren't there defending Super Earth, like other people won't be doing that for you. So you feel the like desire to go back in and fight more, and you feel invested in the world. Whereas with the pirate, like Skull and Bones, what is there to draw you back? Like, what purpose do I have for continually playing this game over the next 5 years? How was your HR run in there?
Oh, it was great. They loved it.
Hello and welcome back to the Underleveled podcast.
They say it takes two to tango, but now it takes two to host a podcast.
Well, I'm Björn.
Who am I? Hushav. Hey.
And we come at you with some unfortunate news. Kieran is out for today, and maybe even for tomorrow, due to a severe soul-sucking accident that occurred in the depths of the Amazon jungle. He was working with the mom from Madam Web. And while she and the spider were tangoing, Kieran was tangoing with himself. We'll keep you updated on any further news as we become aware of it.
His web connects us all.
He was shooting webs for sure.
I was playing the violin. I don't know if you can put that in post just for a nice little...
How the f*** do you want... Dude, I've just gotten used to like masking, which is where you kind of block something.
You should talk to your therapist about that.
Shut the f*** up.
Yeah.
Anyways,
so tell us about you getting used to masking.
No, I don't want to.
Wow.
But today it's just going to be Hushav and myself, but we are going to be talking about a bunch of stuff. Over to you. Over to our reporter in the field.
Yeah, like we went from the last 2 weeks having like no news coming out to all the news coming out this week. And I think probably the best place to start is give an update on Xbox.
Okay, please take the lead.
Alright, so obviously if you guys watched our earlier episodes, which I'm sure you all did, because we're the best.
Our girlfriend's like...
we were speculating on Xbox and what their big announcement was going to be, if they were going to officially declare that they were only going to be focusing on hardware and just being a third party software developer.
This is from 2 episodes ago. Right?
Yes.
So like maybe 2.5 weeks, there was rumblings.
Rumbling. But Phil Spencer came out and was like, guys, calm down. You know, it's not as bad. We are just going to be porting over 4 games that are currently exclusive to the Xbox, with a view of that to change in the future.
What are the 4 games?
As of now, we only know what one of them was, which was announced at IGN's FanFest, thank you. Which is Hi-Fi Rush.
Which one is that like a...
It's that beat 'em up rhythm game where everything like moves to a rhythm. Like you're fighting, the movement. It's very colourful. It's done kind of like in that Borderlands style.
Oh, I know exactly what game you're talking about. There was another Xbox exclusive game from years ago that has... I think it was an Xbox exclusive. Just at the beginning of the... What generation came after the Xbox 360?
The Xbone.
I think at the beginning of the Xbox One's life, there was a game whose name I'm going to add in post right over here.
Sunset Overdrive.
Okay, great game. I played the shit out of that game. 10 out of 10 game.
Wow, it's so nice. But
so much memories.
Like jumped around and like it had very punk aesthetic, but that colorful punk was a bit of a zombie-esque world where you had these virus creatures, but you jumped around, fought them, grinded on rails, got like little pop-ups, like you saying like rad, wham.
This is like scratching something. I vaguely can like remember.
What's scratching?
My balls. But yeah, so he also then, because the 2 games everybody's like was saying definitely gonna go across was the new Indiana Jones and Starfield. But he was like, guys, calm down. It's safe. It's not going to be going over to other platforms. But I feel like he wanted to add yet.
Because like he starts saying it and you can hear the producer be like, no,
cut him off. Because I truly feel now that they are going to eventually just discontinue their hardware and just be, like I said, a third-party software, blah, blah, blah. Words.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to be a 1-year exclusive for all of their games where for 1 year, new Xbox games will be exclusive to Xbox, and then once that 1 year is over, they'll port it over to the other consoles.
What's the point? What
But
purpose does that serve? Because then you just have a bit of patience and you
Yeah.
get to play.
But we're seeing this more and more that the walls are falling down between the exclusives and they're going over mainly to PC. Obviously, Nintendo would rather see the world burn before they give any of their titles to anyone else. But it seems like for everybody else, they're becoming more and more accepting of sharing their IPs.
What are rabbits? I was scrolling
Rabbids
through
started on one of the Sega. I think they were Sega.
because in Ubisoft games that have made, I was just looking up Ubisoft because of a topic we'll talk about later, but there was a game that they made in the last couple of years which was Mario plus Rabbids, which was definitely a crossover between a Mario, and I wonder how that then came about.
But I think Rabbids was originally Sega, and Nintendo has partnered with Sega in the past.
Well,
I could be wrong, but I feel like Rabbids were...
but this is a Ubisoft game.
Yeah, but Ubisoft has always done multiple consoles.
Yeah, fair enough. Either way, so that's kind of the Xbox news.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy. Kind of just being like.
Yeah, I
hey.
mean, like, everybody blew it out of proportion, but like, hey, that's the world we live in. We jump to conclusions first, ask questions later.
Okay, speaking of jumping to what's it? Conclusions?
Conclusions?
The PS5.
Yeah, so the PS5 is entering its life cycle according to...
Latter?
Yeah,
That's
later. Thank you. According to their conference reports by their CEO, which actually makes sense because we are now in the 4th year of the PS5. The previous two PlayStations, 4 and 3, had a 7-year life cycle.
And the 2?
I didn't go that far back, but I could assume probably follows the same.
Can you continue with the announcement?
Sure. Anyway, so they say they're entering the later life cycle. You got me thinking about this too much. We're now in the latter half of the life cycle of the PlayStation 5, it's kind of a failure compared to their previous consoles. Because as of this moment right now, PlayStation 5 only has 14 exclusives, and a lot of those 14 are not like bangers. They're like random ass titles that not a lot of people have like played. Obviously, we've got like your big ones like your God of Wars and
PS5 has Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok,
yeah,
which is a sequel. So there's a YouTuber and streamer I watch quite a lot called Luke Stevens.
Oh, I know Luke Stevens.
Right. He does some really good long form review. I have my issues with some.
He does
some
like
stuff.
the like before you buy type of things.
No,
Does
that's
he not?
Game Ranks. Game Ranks literally does a series called Before You Buy. But Luke Stevens, he's a white dude.
I do know him. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but he was talking about the fact that the PS5 has pretty much just had sequels and some random, whereas the PS4 had. When we think of God of War nowadays, we don't think of like the first 3. We think of like the reimagining.
Yeah, but God of War started with the PlayStation 2.
I know, but saying like technically,
it's
almost like a new game.
I get you. They're like rebooted almost.
Yeah, as opposed to it being a sequel.
Yeah.
And it also, what were the other big PS4 games? You had Red Dead.
Red Dead wasn't exclusive though. It was.
It was cross-gen.
Horizon Zero Dawn was a big one.
Yes.
Actually, I think I have a list of.
Before we get to that,
4 exclusives.
just the time jumps between the different consoles. So from PS1 to PS2, it was 5 years, a little over 5 years. From PS2 to PS3, it was 6 years and 8 months, and then
so round that up, 7 years.
Yeah. So it's and
4 months?
2/3.
Fine. Yeah, round it up,
dude.
0.666666666.
Yeah, but I can't say I got 100% on a test if I got.
Do you know when I go to work, if you like, we have to do your 8 hours, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get there at like 7 and you do your 8, you're leaving at what, 3?
7 plus 8 is 15. So
Yeah.
3.
So I always like round down my time. So if I get there at like 7:59, I round down and I say I got there at 7:30.
That's not how rounding works.
It is to me.
Bros.
So, sorry, yeah.
So then, yeah, and as you said earlier, from PS3 to PS4 was 7 years. Oh, wait, no? Yeah, 7 years and 5 days. So almost exactly 7 years.
Round that up to 8.
So yeah, so that's the time jumps between the consoles.
Yeah.
And then the exclusives.
So you wanted PS4 exclusives?
PS4, like, I want the big ones.
All right, so
home runs.
the big ones that I had, but I looked up, because I wanted to look up the same period now for the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 years into their cycle, they had 27 exclusives. At that time, the like big ones would have been Killzone, the fourth Killzone Shadowfall, Infamous Second Sons,
Ooh.
Last of Us Remastered, Little Big Planet 3, Bloodborne, Until Dawn, Uncharted 4, Ratchet and Clank,
Sequel.
Horizon Zero Dawn Original.
Okay, so
and
there's Horizon Zero Dawn and
oh,
Bloodborne.
and Knack. I don't know if you know about Knack.
Like Knack. No.
Oh, it's such a meme game. Do you know Video Game Donkey?
I do know video games.
It's his like favorite like meme game. So like,
What do you do? Is it a platformer? I don't.
it's like an RPG, almost kind of like that Ratchet and Clank-esque type thing, but you kind of like this Lego man thing. Look it up. It's hilarious.
Okay, so that's what we've looked at. Xbox. We looked at PlayStation. What is the news with Nintendo?
Oof. They had a direct, didn't they? Recently.
Yes, they did.
Anything good come out of it?
So
Because I completely missed it.
I don't understand when you have a Nintendo fanboy such as yourself that you were so confused by a message on a group being like, "Hey, there's a Nintendo Direct."
Because I literally did not hear anything about a Nintendo Direct.
So it wasn't like the big Direct. I don't think it was a partner Direct, which means it's all the studios that are partnered with Nintendo, and like the games they're releasing. It was very arcadey. I watched I think the whole roundup. It just was a lot of trailers, some remakes. Like nothing that completely floored me. The one, like, I was kind of weirded out by the fact that they're taking Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is one of my favorite games at the moment, and are putting it on the Switch, which it's a very demanding game on a high-end PC, and it looks garbage on the footage I've seen for the Switch. It makes no sense for that to be on there. But also The Witcher 3 is on the Switch, right? What are the other big games that they've put on the Switch? Do you know?
Not really. There are some big AAA games. I think a couple of the Assassin's Creeds have got to be on the Switch. But the thing is, like, I buy the Switch for the Nintendo games. I don't buy it so I can play Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Switch.
It does feel like a bit of a thing. Like, oh, if you have a Switch and nothing else, you can play this. Like, but it's also not that. I wouldn't want to play those games on Switch because you lose a lot of the graphic. Like, for a lot of the games, the graphics are what like really send it into the stratosphere.
Do you? I don't know if you remember the whole like Harry Potter games, like the early ones, like the Philosopher's Stones and like the Chamber of Secrets.
I think I might have played 1 and 2.
So do you know like every single one on every different console is different?
So
like
for instance,
the Chamber of Secrets that was made for the PlayStation 2 is not the same that was made for the PlayStation 1, which is not the same game which was made for like the Game Boy. All of them were like different styles.
Were they different studios?
All different studios, yeah. So it kind of like feels like that when it goes to a Switch, like completely different studios
so it's not
doing
even a port, dude. That's kind of like a hectic burn on on the people that port it.
Well, don't port into the Switch. You know what it can do. It can't support these high-end games.
Okay.
Like, keep it to what you know. Like putting over like Stardew Valley makes sense. Hades makes sense. What else makes sense? Hollow Knight makes sense because those are things which can run on the Switch's hardware.
Okay. I will say there were a couple of things that stood out a bit to me.
Yeah.
So there was a game that scratches my JRPG weird itch of like anime girls in no armor. Like, it's called Unicorn Overlord.
You're such a degenerate.
It looks almost like a bit of a weird blending of Fire Emblem and a Final Fantasy kind of
I
thing.
love a Fire Emblem.
So it's got that kind of campaign with lots of main characters that you can play as and stuff. Looked very cool, but also like I've seen it 5 million times before.
So is there nothing when you were watching it that's kind of going to set it apart from its contemporaries?
There was...
No, I meant this game.
Oh, this game. No, you'll have seen it before for sure. I think I haven't played it, but from everything I saw and researched, otherwise there's a remake of Disney Epic Mickey.
Oh yes.
Rebrushed, which is a classic game that they've which the gameplay looked awesome. It looked super, super cool.
So, and this is like reanimated, like they actually reanimated everything where it's not like updated graphics.
They didn't just put it into a new engine.
Yeah, which is like, you know, hats off to them for actually, you know, putting in the work
The
to...
mechanics look really cool. Like, you're using paintbrushes and stuff to edit. It's almost like a level platformer kind of game where you're moving through a level, trying to like climb and go places, and you're using like a brush to paint things, and it creates like doorways and edits the world that you see around you.
Is it the same way like you'll switch from like a 2D to a 3D?
I think so. I didn't get that. I just watched the trailer for the actual
I've
game.
never played the original. It was always like one of the games I wanted to, but I never got around to
Does it feel a bit like nerd homework in a sense? Like, it's, for instance, like when you're big into fantasy, everyone says you got to read Wheel of Time, but no one wants to read Wheel of Time because it's 14 books, each one is 1,000 pages. Is this game kind of like, you should play it because you're a fan of this genre,
I think,
but because you feel like you have to.
If I had like all the time in the world and I could sit down and do these things, like, but you have to like prioritize like games and like what you want to do, and you want to be like up to date with what's happening more or less.
Okay.
And then like it could be like a new comfort game, but like always to step out of your zone and try that. It's like, I'd rather go back to Stardew Valley.
Dude, yeah, we actually talked about this with Kieran, who's unfortunately still in the hospital.
Rest in power.
But like starting new games is so tough because it's new controls, new lore, all this kind of. It's just maybe 5 to 10 hours to just get used to a new system, which is just so demanding of you as a gamer when time is limited.
It depends. Like a gamer, depending where you are in your gamer life cycle, as in, you know, us, we work, we have other priorities, but I'm sure if we're like still in high school, it would be totally different.
Dude, burn through games like no one's business. So was that then? There's a Souls-like kind of game called Another Crab's Treasure. Basically, you're this little hermit crab.
Oh, actually, no, I did see this.
And it looks like it's on the Switch. It's not a graphical marvel, but it looks very cool and interesting. Where you're a small crab, a hermit crab, and you are looking for a new shell, but you can equip different kinds of shells, like a little tin can, and all kinds of things that you might find in the ocean.
What was the style of the?
Honestly, if a bit low poly, but also just happy colors and lots of it's for the Switch. Like it's not gonna be
too demanding.
It's gonna be very arcade looking.
Okay.
But it looked cool, and I think that the gameplay looked nice and crisp as well.
See, now saying like that Hermit Crab game, I did see something about that, but I didn't know that was from a Nintendo Direct.
I don't know what the studio's name is, but it is. And then the other one I was going to talk about was Kingdom Come, but like once again, so it was just a lot of partner studios of Nintendo talking about some of the games they're working on. There were some other interesting ones, but for the most part, those are ones that like stood out to me, and I think were like quite cool. But that was also not the only like big gaming event we had this past week.
Well, we've got a big one coming up, also related to Nintendo.
Oh, well, okay. So the Pokemon Direct.
Pokemon Direct next week, Wednesday.
Okay, and what are we thinking?
In my mind and heart, it is them responding to Palworld. Which is, speaking of Palworld, just sold 25 million copies.
25 million?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about Palworld, but we have to first talk about Pokemon, and I want to see... I don't know enough about Pokemon Directs and the Pokemon Company when they talk about like things happening. I imagine they're talking about a remake. I don't know if they're going to announce new games. I also don't understand why they have an entire Direct outside of Nintendo.
Because they are their biggest moneymakers.
But how many things could you be announcing? Like
surprisingly, they like Pokemon does like a lot of shit between like their series, movies, like small little mobile games. They've been doing more and more. Like that Pokemon. Oh, what's that Pokemon mobile game?
Pokemon Go.
Not Pokemon Go. It's another one that's kind of like you like a Pokemon and like it's kind of like a capture the flag type thing. Is it Pokemon Unity? Can't remember, but like that's a pretty like popular game, especially in the Asian markets.
Did you watch Pokemon Concierge on Netflix?
No, but I want to. Apparently, it's
so
banging.
Cute. It's so lovely. It's short. I think each episode is like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I saw like the art style for it.
It's very
pretty.
Like, it is very, very pretty, and it made me want to play Pokemon. It was awesome. It made me want to have like a friend that was a Pokemon.
Oh.
But so I guess they
You don't want a
it in-
pal.
Shut the fuck up. Just stay on topic.
So yeah, so you know, everybody's saying it's them gonna respond to Power World. Oh, Power World's getting too big. This is them gonna snap back at them. But realistically, it takes a lot of months, a lot of time to plan a direct. This is not them. This is not Game Freak and Nintendo freaking out and being like, we need to pull the emergency lever.
Untrue. I'm taking the other side. Think about it. Power World smashes records.
25 million.
25 million, like you just said. From a studio that's like double A.
What is it? Is it a month it's been out now?
I think it at 19th of Jan or something like that. It's peak. So you have a website called like Steam.
Second highest peak in Steam history.
Right. But I mean, well behind. But it's still second place.
Behind Dota.
But no, not Dota.
Was that Dota?
CS:GO, dude. CS:GO.
Oh my god, that means they beat Dota.
Yes. It is
Oh,
like
that's big. That's huge.
Insane. And their like concurrent players through the month of Jan was more than 1 million. Like every day, more than 1 million people were playing.
Was that
the game.
tracked across Microsoft and Steam or just Steam?
It's just Steam.
Okay.
So I can't remember the exact name, but it's like Steam Host or something like Streamlabs. I don't know. But it's the average throughout the month of Jan was more than 1 million players. It has now dipped to around, I think I wrote it down somewhere, but I got too many notes this time.
That's fine.
To around between 200 and 300,000.
Still very good.
Concurrent, which is very good, but because it's such a big dip, not Microsoft, Nintendo or the Pokemon
Game
company
Freak
is now like, okay, it's calm down. See, they were probably going to do the Pokemon Direct a month ago, but then that would have been way too competitive. So now that that's dipped, they're finally seeing a gap in the market. So you were talking about how they... Sorry, I can feel the like crazy garage conspiracy theorists coming out, where it's like, you were talking about it takes months to set it up, but if they'd already had it set up, they could have just delayed it by a month.
No, logistically it takes too much. Like you don't know what goes.
You don't work in logistics. I do.
I do.
I work in logistics. Dude.
I literally work in logistics.
I work in logistics.
Oh
You
my
don't work in
God.
logistics. Next thing you'll be saying that you work for a company.
Shh, no one's supposed to know that.
I feel like I call you a bro all the time. Either way,
I'm homeless. I'm jobless. Don't look me up on.
Dude, I briefly thought you were like petitioning our 4 viewers to be like, here's my PayPal link.
No, but so you honestly think,
No. But it is hilarious how close it is. Like, we're seeing a bit of a dip in the popularity of Power World compared to the original amount of hype. Now it comes the long, not crunch, but it's the developers are going to have to now steadily, like, deliver on what they've promised with the base game.
Yeah.
And actually get the bugs figured out, get the balancing correct, get the gameplay more like seamless and smooth. Otherwise, it will eventually just be a flash in the pan and drop off completely, except for maybe a core group of players. But no, I don't think Pokemon specifically announced this direct in response.
If we want to go down that rabbit hole, my ideal Pokemon Direct would be them coming out and you're like, you want Pokemon with guns? We're gonna fucking give you Pokemon with guns, and it's a Splatoon crossover. So you get like a Pikachu with a little paint gun. Like, there you go. You want Pokemon with guns? Suck on that.
But they're like friendly guns.
Yeah.
Because Pokemon.
Yeah. That in my ideal world, that's how they answer Power World. But
Pokemon X Nerf. Like.
Actually, you never know.
Oh, dude, imagine a Nerf gun, but it's just Pikachu. Like,
you get hit with it, you get electrocuted.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
But I think what everybody's hoping is that they're going to be announcing the old Game Boy games are going to be available on the Switch. Because what Nintendo's been doing lately is they've been making a lot of their old titles available on the Switch. So not like remastered or anything. You can just play an old Game Boy game now on your Switch. So people are really hoping at the Gen 3 games specifically.
So Ruby, Ruby, give me a second. I got it.
Think
Ruby.
Jewels.
I know Emerald.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Is it Sapphire?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Fucking smart.
Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, Gen 3.
Okay, gotcha.
So people are
Wait,
really...
Is that called back compatibility, reverse compatibility? Because I know you can play like PlayStation 4 games on PlayStation 5, and you can play a lot of the old Xbox games on the newer Xbox.
I think it's only called backwards compatibility when you can take the disc and...
otherwise it's just a digital download.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So everybody's hoping that it's that's going to be announced. I think the fan base would really love remakes of Black and White, which would be the next titles to get remakes after Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. Yeah.
Well, did Platinum get a remake?
No, they never remake like the third game.
Okay.
And Black and White, from Black and White onwards, they stopped doing the third game, which I hate, because the third game was always the best because they always like refined everything that worked in the other two, and like made it crisp.
Is that because they started doing almost like more regular releases?
Kind of like we basically,
because you had Black and White, then Black and White 2 a couple years later, and then a jump.
But like Black and White 2 is basically like the third title because it's more or less the same story from Black and White, except a few things changed. Obviously, like I said, refined a lot of the things they did well in Black and White, and then we got Black and White 2 instead of just a Black and White Grey. Yeah. I mean, a Pokemon Grey.
You just mix them together.
Pokemon Grey. It should have been called Pokemon Grey because, Black and White was Zekrom and Reshiram, and then the third legendary was Kyurem, which is...
Are you speaking Hindu? What's going on?
It's kind of racist, right? That it was like an ice dragon, and the entire story with that was there was one whole... The legend around Reshiram and Zekrom was that they were one Pokemon, Yin and Yang, that split apart, and from them splitting apart, there was a third Pokemon that was created, which was the Husk, kind of, that resulted from them separating, which is Kyurem. And the story of Black and White 2 is kind of like, Team Plasma making a device that allowed Kyurem and one of the main title legendaries, so Zekrom or Reshiram, to combine together. And that was the first time we had fusions in Pokemon, which was like a very hectic time in the fan base because people were like, oh no, they're doing Digimon, we're going down the Digimon road, no, God, please, no. But that was the only time.
Some might argue that the Digimon road is pretty cool.
No.
Unfortunately, they are not here to defend themselves.
for a reason. They're extinct.
But okay, so that's... Yeah, so they're gonna announce maybe like a series.
They'll probably announce an upcoming movie, most likely. And maybe talk about the remakes. Hopefully talk about old titles coming across. Most likely the last thing they'll drop a trailer for we're going to Gen 10. Wow.
Don't ask. I don't know.
Gen 10. Wonder what that's gonna be like. I really hope that they've learned from their mistakes from Scarlet and Violet.
Every single one of the Pokemon is just going to be an inanimate object. It's going to be like Table O. And
I wonder if they were to go back to that, how the fan base would respond. I think they'd be happy if they would go back to basics. But ideally, what people would want is Tears of the Kingdom, Xenoblade type. Type gameplay graphics. I mean,
it was also Immortals Phoenix Rising was another Switch game that was quite popular.
Really good.
But okay, so
that wraps up our console news at least.
Okay, and games are getting quite good, with IGN Fest as well. I kind of just want to run through it so we can get to the main topic.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna list off the games that stood out to me. I also didn't watch everything.
I watched as much as I could,
I spent, I think I said 2 to 3 hours going through, and I didn't even scratch the turn.
Yeah.
But some things that looked specifically cool. There was a game called City 20, which looks like what I grasped from it was you play as an individual that is trying to escape from the city that's kind of gone to shit. And it looks, the art style is a bit more basic, maybe a bit more poly and simple and stylized, but very pretty. And it seems like a survival-ish kind of game, but more in the vein of did you ever play This War of Mine, which
I've heard of it.
A lot
I never
more gritty
and
serious. That was cool. I'm trying to remember some of these. There was a game called Outbreak Island, which I didn't give a shit about.
Was it like Plague?
So essentially, the trailer starts with the guy like hopping. It's first person. You hop out of the taxi, and it's raining, and it looks like this weird, not shipyard. You're out in the middle of a forest, but it looks like a massive, like what you'd imagine a settlement to look like. That's made from containers and whatever. But you go through this hole, and it goes down. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like a lame zombie game. And then, or you're like a journalist, like an Alan Wake kind of situation where you don't have any abilities. But then it started playing. I was like, oh, it more seems like you are a tactical response individual, like a certain set of skills that has been sent in to clear out this area. So you have your guns, you have your whatever. And I was like, I wrote the game off until halfway through the trailer where it shows that you can actually like build a small base and do farming. And
my god, no, don't put farming second like that wasn't the thing.
It was so funny. I was talking to myself, I was genuinely about to click the skip button and like to go to the next trailer I had to watch, and then I paused with my finger on top of the mouse as like he started building his base, and you saw him carrying around buckets and making little raised beds for things to plant in. It was dude, it was such a comic book moment for me. I was like, I'm so predictable. So that game does not look like fun except for the farming aspect. Paralives looked very cool. I don't know if you saw anything about that. It looks like a Sims kind of competitor, but maybe a bit more, like, not ingratiated. What's the right term?
Do you think the world still craves for Sims? Like, I know, like, gamer girls love Sims still. But
one in particular that we can think of.
Two in particular.
Fair enough.
But other than that, like, do you think this might bring back the craze?
No, I don't think it's gonna have a massive audience.
Yeah.
But I think maybe streamers might pick up on it as a fun thing to play, and it will be popular with a certain group of people. But I don't think.
Well, like so you're saying the simulation audience already.
But I will say it's done by an indie team, very cool, and they're fully funded by Patreon. So there's no. The plan is to have like, no DLC, no like everything will be once you buy the game, you buy the game. There's not gonna be like Sims where you have to pay. You get the base game, and then you have to spend thousands upon thousands of rands for the expansions, right? So they're also like fairly well supported on Patreon, all that kind of stuff, which is awesome. Let's see. There was an Elden Ring DLC announced. There was Harold Halibut, which looked like a very cool.
This was also on my list.
Yeah, and then Plucky Squire actually I was
also on my list.
Okay. So the Plucky Squire just looked like a very cool like storybook line art adventure.
Back to what happened to you with your farming simulator. I was watching this, so obviously you oversee the entire level, so you can see everything that's happening. And so I just thought it's just a type of puzzle game because the characters like going from one side to the next trying to like figure out the puzzle. I'm like, okay, I mean like the animation style is pretty cool, but other than that, bleh. And then all of a sudden, the character just can pop out of the book, and it goes from a 2D to a 3D game. And when they pop out of the like storybook, they're able to play with the actual level by messing with the book. So there's this particular part where there's a cart on the one side, and by lifting the page, he's able to move the cart and slide to the other side.
So sick.
So that like hooked me because I love that like change of thinking, and like especially like level like puzzle games with that they add like a like twist like that where you have to like adapt the way you think is crack cocaine for me.
Did you ever play Fez by any chance? It's you might recognize the character, but it's like the small like white character with a square head or a rectangular head, and I think maybe even a cap. I could be wrong, but essentially the game starts and it just looks like a side-scrolling platformer. But then you hit a button on your control on the keyboard, and then the camera shifts. So then you realize it's all actually 3D, but you have to change the like which part you're facing flat on to like make your way through the.
A lot of Nintendo titles that did that also.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
But that's kind of there's a couple others like Inotria, The Lost Song, Lost Epoch, Nightingale, Dying Light 2. They didn't stand out as much to me as the other ones I mentioned.
Yeah, I would like to shine a light on Harold Halibut.
Okay.
Because everything that's in that game, they created, all like clay animation that they all made by hand, and then 3D scanned it into the game, which is why it has a very like distinct style, where it feels like like Wallace and Gromit
Do you know what? When I was watching the trailer, it reminded me of Wes Anderson films.
Yes, actually.
It had that really lovely...
If you told me Wes Anderson like oversaw this game, I'd be like, oh yeah, 100%.
It's literally Wes Anderson meets claymation.
Yes.
But it looks like a very story driven kind of game. What is it? You are on a spaceship looking for a new home.
I think it was either spaceship or you're underwater.
I think it's spaceship.
Yeah.
I think you're on like a big spaceship and you've joined as a crew member or something.
Yes, and then you just, it's supposed to be like a very relaxing game with like a mystery.
Lots of story, lots of talking. Awesome. Anything else
No.
from IGN Fest?
No, those were the only ones that like stuck out to me gaming wise. Oh, actually no. One last one. Not a new game, but Dave the Diver is getting a new update where
Godzilla.
they're going to be a crossover with Godzilla. And if you don't know, I'm a huge Godzilla fan.
Dude, I was watching a TikTok recently where it's two dudes standing at a fence, and it's the caption was Godzilla at the end of every movie. And it's like he shakes the dude's hand, and the one guy just walks off and like walks back into the fucking lake.
Okay, yeah.
And it's
not wrong. That's usually how Godzilla goes out when... Oh, except that crappy Godzilla movie that had Matthew Broderick, who's the voice of Simba.
I was in the wrong guy here.
Alright. Well, that was a very bad Godzilla movie. Don't do that. Toei Studios actually bought the rights to that Godzilla.
Toei?
Yeah.
Toei Animation?
Was it Toei? I can't remember the name of the Godzilla studios. I think it's Toei. Whatever. That studio bought the rights to that American Godzilla just so they can put it in their movie and have the original Godzilla like beat the living shit out of it.
Dude, that's such a big dick move. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, Dave the Diver is getting a crossover Godzilla and a lot of like new monsters and updates, or like it looks like it's going to be a new post game, which I'm very excited for because that was like my one complaint when I reviewed Dave the Diver on the podcast, is that once you complete the game, there's not like a lot of stuff to do afterwards besides completing your fish Pokedex.
Okay, so speaking of games with not a lot to do, I want to talk about Skull and Bones.
Okay.
How much have you researched? How much have you watched? What have you...
A lot, because I'm very interested, because I love pirates.
I love pirates.
I think they're better than cowboys, knights, all the other like traditional like fantasy characters. That
Vampires.
Yeah.
So you're a big fan of pirates?
Yeah. So this is something that I've been paying attention to for a while.
Okay, so important to know, Skull and Bones got released on the... When was it?
Earlier in Feb. 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Feb 16th. So a week ago.
Oh, was it a week ago?
Skull and Bones got released after 10-ish, well, close on 10 years of development. The publishers are Ubisoft, and it was developed by Ubisoft Singapore. One of the directors of Ubisoft called it one of the first quadruple A games, and its initial price tag I think was $70. It is now dropped down to $60 as far as I'm aware.
So speaking on quadruple A quickly, he was actually the second CEO to announce that they made a quadruple A game. There's another Microsoft CEO who said they're making a quadruple A game.
And what was the game?
I can't remember what it's called right now. I'll look it up now. I have it on my notes somewhere.
Okay.
But this was the first official released quadruple A game.
And then it dropped, and everyone was like, "Huh,
wonder why."
This doesn't feel like a quadruple A. It doesn't even feel like a triple A.
This is a quadruple A standards. Well, gaming is going in the wrong direction.
Okay. Before we go any further, and I do have strong opinions. It's important to say like no game developer wants to make a bad game.
Yeah.
No one that is in the art team, no one that's in the animation team, no one that's in the development side, no one wants to make a bad game.
Yeah.
And normally it'll come down to like time pressure, poor direction, and then like managerial people kind of, or people that aren't even in the development of the game, but just funding it, that are like, we need returns on our investment. It often comes down to that. So the investors apply the pressure, and then you end up with something like, and also it's important to say Skull and Bones has fun moments. Apparently the like ship fighting is very arcadey and very fast paced. It's not going to be for everyone.
Okay.
But it is like decent, and it is very pretty.
I want to stop you before we talk any more on it.
Okay.
I think to understand exactly why Skull and Bones is in its position now, we need to look at the dev cycle and why it took 10 years to make.
Okay, it's also before we do that though, it is important to say it is a live service game,
It's a live
which
service
means you pay for the game, and then it's meant to get more content and more updates later on in its lifespan. It's meant to be seasonal, so like 4 times a year. There's meant to be a new season.
Well, they at the IGN FanFest already released trailers for the first update. It's going to be looking
which is part of like it's almost like you're buying in to an unfinished game.
Yeah.
But okay, and it's meant to keep players hooked and coming back to it. That's the basic premise. But now, it started in 2013 after the release of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which was the 4th major Assassin's Creed game, and people were like, we like this pirate shit. So, Ubisoft. So in Assassin's Creed 3, there was a ship fighting aspect.
Very small.
But that was handled by Ubisoft Singapore, which is why then Ubisoft Singapore was given the rights to develop Skull and Bones.
Yeah, so they actually did the entire Black Flag one.
No, did they do the whole of Black Flag?
They did the entire Black Flag, the mechanics, the naval mechanics.
Okay, the naval mechanics, right.
I don't think they worked on the AC3's one.
They did. I can promise you, they did.
But I do know for a fact that they did everything, all the naval mechanics for AC4.
But before giving the reins for this, they had never shipped a full game.
Never.
And this is so it started 2014 was when they started development.
They were always a support studio for the major, other major Ubisoft locations.
Okay.
Studios.
And then, how did the shitstorm, because then we got hyped, right? Oh, Skull and Bones, we're getting a pirate game.
What actually fucked them up is they took a grant from the Malaysian...
Allegedly. It has not been confirmed.
But... Okay, so they have asked Ubisoft about it, but Ubisoft has always...
They said no comment.
No comment, which speaks in itself.
I mean, sure, but
Silence
no one has confirmed this. That's the problem. You can't be like, oh...
But if you think, if I'll tell you why later, it makes sense why it wasn't a 10-year, but starting off, they took grant money from the Singapore government.
And they had to develop
a game,
or they had to produce a game within a certain amount of time.
Which makes sense why it had a 10-year life cycle, because most games, when they start to struggle, they would just be canned. They're like, you know what, this isn't working.
It's too much money for a studio to put into something that isn't guaranteed to work out.
So let's cut our losses. We tried this, it didn't work, whatever. But 10 years, they had to do it, and there had to be a reason. And the only thing people can think of is they accepted money from the Singapore government, which required them to make a AAA game.
Okay, and it started out... The original premise of Skull and Bones was a 5v5 kind of... not arcade style, but...
Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege type vibe.
Yeah, right? And there are some elements in the game that we got that were like and I think it's quite cool, maybe not as fleshed out as it could have been, but you can have different ships that are like focus on healing or focus on tanking and focus on speed, all this kind of stuff.
Just quickly on the healing, I love it. It's called a medicinal cannonball that when you're playing with other people online who are on your fleet, if you need to heal, they fire a cannonball at you and it heals your ship. It's great.
I don't think there's a better way to do that.
But I just love that concept so much.
But so it started off with this 5v5. Essentially, you wait in a lobby, you are on this 5v5 match, and then you leave the lobby. Yes. Like, you win or lose the game. And that was the original premise. Then,
so at this point, this was the first they had the first creative director, and this was his vision for the game.
Yeah. And I don't want to get too stuck into the details, but basically, over the next couple of years, they would have different creative directors, and who would be there and then leave. Be there and then leave. And what would happen is every time a new creative director came on, they would essentially push out some of the other managers and directors and put their own people in place who they've worked with before. And as a result, the vision of the game kept changing.
I will say I dived into this a bit deeper, and there was only 3.
Yeah.
The second one who came in, she was a veteran of the industry.
Yeah,
been there for 20 years.
Elizabeth? What's her name?
I can't remember her last name, but for the most part, she tried to take as much as she could from the previous guy and from the team that had built the 5v5 and continue that. She didn't want to disrupt by firing and replacing.
Yeah.
But when she left, she kind of just left the ball holding for the final person.
Well,
but they said she also left because it was at the end of the cycle and she was supposed to leave.
Yeah.
But
they didn't need like her vision anymore.
I don't think there were too many managerial and other turnovers. I think they tried to keep it as concise as they did from what I looked into it.
But
Still, having different creative directors come in with different visions is going to create a lot of disruption.
because I think when she hopped on, she started thinking of it more of like a survival looter kind of thing, right?
Shooter, looter.
And which is just tough because then you tell your teams that have developed all these things, these mechanics, that they now need to focus on other things instead. And on top of that, over the course of the development of this game, the new consoles came out. The PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S were released, and then they have to essentially rebuild the game in a newer engine.
They publicly had to push back Skull and Bones 6 times, which currently holds a record for the most publicly announced pushbacks in the video game history.
Which is insane, and that all leads to what was it, a week ago now, where after all this stuff with like the development cycle and ex-Ubisoft and current Ubisoft employees talking about how confusing it was, how frustrating it was at times, and like there being a bit of crunch culture, all that kind of stuff. And we end up with Skull and Bones. Now, I've watched a lot. I've seen that the ship customization is really cool.
I managed to play a little bit.
Really?
On a friend's PC.
And wait, so as far as I'm aware, the early game, so you start, you're someone that's washed up on the shores of an island. You then need to start building up your ship from the ground. So you start with this little monosail kind of boat, just you, and you get 2 crewmates. Then you get to the mid game, which is a bit more piratey as opposed to the early game.
I would say it's not a pirate game; it's a pirate ship game because you do very little being an actual pirate.
Okay.
Because you play as a ship.
Yeah.
You're a ship.
And all the customization is based on the ship.
Yeah.
Like every part
which is
of the
insane. It has a lot of really good customization. You can really make the boat feel your own, however you want to do it.
And does it look as pretty as I think it
is?
does?
It's a very pretty game.
Yeah.
Being in the ocean, looking at your surrounding islands, it's very well done graphically wise.
And then you get caught up and they start singing songs.
Yeah, like
the she raises. It's really cool. I love pirate games. When you're sailing and you're like, oh shit, this is sick actually. Also, I know you can go first person, which is even cooler because you can kind of like be sailing.
Yeah, you got your little animal to your right there.
Whereas in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, you were always in that like distant
overhead, like
person,
eagle eye type.
Yeah. So that's really really cool. As far as I know, there isn't a crazy amount of depth to the rest of the game.
Well, I'll say like the actual feel for the game, like it's very smooth. Because if playing with the Black Flag and the ships, it's a bit clunky. Where here it's a lot more responsive, smoother, like firing on your enemies, getting them down with a what's that like cannon thing that fires? Mortar. Like it all runs very smoothly, well thought out of. Bit unrealistic, but like they're focusing more on like the fun arcadey type
so
of
shooting.
So the
combat is very arcadey.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Okay.
Like don't let people tell you otherwise. Like the actual fighting of it is fun. It's a good time, but I think like when people were like, because there's a lot of misconceptions about what the game is. Like people say it's a pirate game. Like I said before, you don't do a lot of pirating.
The big issue there being like when you have wrecked a ship enough to be able to board, you chuck the ropes to pull it close. It cuts to black, and then it's like, you never played Sid Meier's Pirates?
No.
But it's that game from the early 2000s where you would essentially have a battle. You would then pull close to board, and then it would cut to black. And then you would just get all the loot from that boat. And then maybe get the option to recruit some crew members. And it's kind of shit because part of the being a pirate is like swashbuckling.
And we've gotten that experience with Black Flag because obviously in Black Flag you do the exact same thing. Throw the hooks over, reel them in,
but then
and then you go onto to their ship and you fight them. Exactly.
Which is... I don't know if it's nitpicky or not. I think it serves the purpose of like... You're just a ship fighting, and if your point is to have an arcadey ship fighting game, sure, but it's a pirate game.
So I'll say why a lot of people feel like a bit cheated. Like I feel like maybe some people wouldn't care too much, but you do get time where you play as a person, an actual pirate. Only like when you go to like your islands in order to do trade, buy new buy materials and all of that. So you do get to be a person. So a lot of people are like, okay, so why did you implement this small thing? Why not just have it, we dock at an island, and a hub opens up and you can see all the stuff that you need to buy. Why did you need to make a little person? Because now it gives you the expectation maybe in the future they could implement that.
Which is kind of swings back around to the whole live service aspect of it, which is, it's kind of like releasing a game in early access, because if they do eventually implement all these cool things, like, okay, if we were to fix Skull and Bones, if we were to make it into the perfect pirate game for us right now, I would want there to be boarding. I would want the ability to actually roam around like all the islands. I know that there's lots of towns, lots of beautiful places where you dock and you just have like two options. You can't get off, you just like buy stuff, or you loot the place or something like that. And it launches another mini game where you fight, right? Having the ability to hop off, explore, talk to people, do quests, whatever, right? Turn it into a pirate game, not into a arcadey shooter. And on top of that, maybe making the crew a bit more customizable. So doing quests to maybe get like a special gunner who improves accuracy by like 5%. Like lots of nothing crazy. You don't want people to be crazily overpowered fighting against other individuals.
I will say the game itself is very grindy from what I've seen and heard. Like people don't also have an incentive to grind in the game.
Yeah.
Because if you get a strong, you get to a certain point where like the weapons are like, you're more or less one-shotting or two-shotting a thing. They're like, there are no enemies at this moment. Again, back around to live service. Maybe later stronger enemies, but now there's no incentive to get that stronger weapon.
In which case, wait 2 years until they've had 8 seasons.
Yeah.
And then buy in. And then I actually want to say, like, if you want people to constantly come back and play more of the game, have them get invested in the world. Why do I want to care about this, like, world? Which kind of brings me to Helldivers 2, which people are frothing about. Is in early access. It's not a finished game. But in the game of Helldivers, or in the world of Helldivers, you are defending Super Earth from either these robot invaders or these insects. And it is you have frontiers and you have to be fighting, otherwise you will lose different quadrants, and it's like an ongoing battle. So you feel invested, because if you aren't there defending Super Earth, other people won't be doing that for you. So you feel the desire to go back in and fight more, and you feel invested in the world. Whereas with the pirate, like Skull and Bones, what is there to draw you back? Like, what purpose do I have for continually playing this game over the next 5 years? Which then we have not Skull and Bones.
Helldivers.
Not Helldivers. Sorry, what's
Sea of Thieves?
Sea of Thieves. Which is on its 10th, 11th season, somewhere there. But
oh man, it's been around.
It's been around for a long time, and the gameplay is more fun. I find I'm more willing to go back into Sea of Thieves than I would be for Skull and Bones.
How many hours have you put into Sea of Thieves?
I think close to 100.
Jesus.
It's a lot of fun. It's it has pretty much the same thing as Skull and Bones, except you are a pirate, and everything on your boat you have to adjust to the wind, like in Skull and Bones, but you are actively moving the sails, and you are loading the cannons, and you are firing them. The gameplay is more almost not in depth,
grounded.
Yeah, it's still super cartoony. You can shoot yourself in a cannon, but you can also explore pretty much every island. There's lots of different places to go, and it's more silly, and almost the comedy and fun aspects of it keep you coming back. Where I don't see Skull and Bones doing that, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna have a laugh with my friends. Nah, you're gonna do the same arcadey shootout for an hour and then get bored.
I think once they start bringing in some fantastical elements into it, because they have said that they want to bring fantastical beasts into it.
I've seen that there are sea monsters that you can fight.
I think if they start doing when you battle like a kraken, you have to do it with teammates. You have to have a fleet, so to try to get more, to encourage people to play with their friends. Okay. I think that could help have a longer
shelf life.
Yeah, shelf life. And also, like you say, get people to want to play, because right now it's also just a game that you play by yourself, and you can have your friends there with you, but don't need them.
Also, I've heard that it is quite buggy. It's every place
PvP is fucked in that game.
Okay, so it's every play session you're probably going to experience some sort of network issue or gameplay issue whatever it might be, which, you know, it's going to result in you kind of rage quitting the game when you're in the middle of something. And yeah, so there's a lot of issues with it. I would say wait 2 years, see if...
Yeah, there's definitely a game in there. I can see it. I can see them turning it around, but it's going to depend on Ubisoft.
Because even Sea of Thieves, I think, had its issues at the start. People thought it was fun. People like enjoyed shooting their friends out of a cannon, but it also wasn't as popular when it first launched because they had lots of bugs. But now it's a great game.
Honestly, the way I think we've talked about Skull and Bones right now, is just based on the fact that they called it a quadruple A game. They invested 200 million in this, which is double the amount that they invested into... Allegedly. Double the amount they invested in AC4, Black Flag. And, you know, you have a certain expectation. And also a game that is, $1,470.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of expectations with you, and you want, like, a finished product, a product that you're going to enjoy. And because we got what we got, you get the reaction that you did from the gaming community.
When you put something at that price point, you expect perfection.
Yes. I think if it was like a 400 rand game, 350, we wouldn't be like talking about it the way we are now.
What's the thing we talked about? Like, for the price of either Suicide Squad, which is another live service game that launched recently,
another $1,470 game,
which is also arguably not good, and Skull and Bones. So either one of those two games, you can get two of the biggest like AA or indie games of this year, which is Helldivers 2 and Palworld. So either you can buy Skull and Bones and be kind of disappointed, or you can buy Palworld and Helldivers 2 and have a blast of a time for the next couple of months.
Yeah, you can save democracy.
And all three of those games, like Helldivers 2 and Palworld are in early access, which means they are still being developed, and which kind of promises more content and more streamlining in the future.
Yeah.
And so is Skull and Bones, which is allegedly a finished game.
Man, for Helldivers, it's actually insane. So it came out on the 8th of Feb.
Yeah.
Their servers were built to accommodate 150,000 players. And even when they did that, they were like, oh, no ways, we're going to get 150,000 players within like the first few months to be playing our games.
What's the name of the studio? Arrowhead Studios.
Arrowhead Studios.
Right, you're in love with their CEO.
I love him. He's very active on Twitter, and he's constantly helping out people. Even like if they're not tagging him, people be like, "I had this problem in this part." He's like, and he will like underneath be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Send me your details. I'll try to get you streamlined. I mean, fast tracked with our with a ticket for the whatever the issues."
Customer service.
Yes, thank you.
So Arrowhead is a Swedish studio. About 100 people work there. So I think it qualifies still as AA, bordering on triple. Like if you compare Singapore, Ubisoft Singapore,
500.
400 plus, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 4 times the size, and developed. Well, excuse me, I'm burping a bunch here, but and delivered something for almost double the price. That's about half as good. So, lots of big ups to the Helldivers 2 team, for sure.
Yeah, so like I was saying, like they never thought they would reach their 150 so soon.
Yeah.
They did it. By the 17th of Feb, they'd increased it to 500k. And yesterday, they increased it to 750k. Which means they've quadrupled their capacity size in not even a month. People, love this game so much. People love it so much that, obviously people are struggling to get in because they keep increasing their capacity. That the strat became to... Once you're done with your gaming session, you don't log out, you stay there. So Arrowhead actually had to introduce a patch into the game that if you're idle for too long, it's going to kick you out. Because people are loving this game so much that they don't want to go through that waiting process to try and get in.
The sheer amount of Murica memes I've seen of people, what was it? Oh, I think you sent it, where they launch a nuke and in the background is what's the name of the song?
It's AC/DC.
Made to wear the flag. Ooh, they're sending me down the wall.
No, isn't it AC/DC's Thunder?
All those songs are just in one thing with me. It's
so the game is very humorous. It's basically it's done a parody of being super patriotic. So current day Republicans.
Yeah.
And basically, we're trying to spread democracy throughout the universe.
With guns and lead.
Like you said, we're defending Super Earth from aliens and robots.
It looks beautiful, by the way. The atmosphere. I've seen so many clips of someone. Like their friends have extracted successfully and they're the last one standing, and you just see the like red beams of light from the heads of the robots.
Yeah,
it's coming through the mist, and then they're like on the ground like oh.
It creates like great cinematics. Like I remember that. It's like kind of like that opening scene for Tropic Thunder.
Dude, that's such a great analogy. Actually, it's Tropic Thunder, the video game.
Actually, yeah,
that's awesome.
It's great, and surprisingly, like sometimes when you take down a base, you would expect like a game like this. It's like full steam ahead, guns blazing. There's actually a slight stealth element. Like if you want to, you can take down a base by doing stealth. There's a guy who managed to sneak around, perfectly lob a grenade onto like their like jammer, which was the mission for that planet. Managed to blow it up, and he's sprinting away because now all the robots realize that something is happening, and he's just trying to get back.
That's so sick.
So yeah, so there's a bunch of planets surrounding Super Earth, and when you choose it, there's usually one big mission to do, but when you arrive down, there's like smaller missions you can find and a secret one, and completing those helps progress the percentage of liberating a planet.
Yeah, and it looks like it's a whole bunch of different frontiers.
Yeah.
Right, so in the middle you have Super Earth, and then you have all these different quadrants, and surrounding it in this almost like what do you call it?
I think a Milky Way
space map? Yeah. And then you have certain parts that aren't even accessible yet, which will come
in the future.
And it just seems like people are having so much fun, just also role playing as these super patriotic dudes. Like
this game ended the console wars, I would say, because I've seen so many people trying to like recruit, like Sony fanboys are actively petitioning Microsoft to get it onto Xbox. It's the first time I've seen like Halo subreddits and communities, same with Gears of War, be so active.
Wait, I don't understand. You said Sony fanboys want Microsoft to get it on. Oh, because it's crossplay. So they want more people.
They want more people. Like people are joining together for the first time, and this is actually something like Johan, the CEO of Arrowhead, talked about. They were like, "Are you ever gonna make PvP?" He's like, "Fuck no."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, we want this to be. We don't want a toxic community. We want people to feel, a community together, and that's why we have everybody playing together, fighting against a common enemy.
Wait, dude, what was his on? If you go to the Arrowhead's website, right?
A game for everyone is a game for no one.
Exactly, and it's like this. That's their motto or something, which is just a dig at big game studios, where like Skull and Bones is meant to be almost as generic as possible so that anyone can pick it up. You don't make the combat too complex or too manual. You make it arcadey and fun that anyone can hop in and do it.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to hit too much of an audience, and as a result, you kind of don't really hit much of an audience at all. Obviously, sometimes there is success. Like, Ubisoft does make good games. And sometimes people that make a very broad game...
Ubisoft, when they do like small games, like almost like AA games.
The Prince of Persia game recently was apparently very good.
Technically AA.
Whereas Helldivers, it's a very specific kind of game. It's a cooperative shooter.
Third person, first person only when you
and
down scopes.
So on Arrowhead Studio, where they say this, it very much feels like a dig at AAA studios who have all this budget, have all this money, have all these like resources available to them, and are just so locked in to that kind of treadmill of having to appease as many different people as possible, otherwise they will sink, right? And whereas Arrowhead, which is hopefully going to remain in this kind of AA sphere, and they're like just going to keep making games and improving games like Helldivers 2, that just they hit a niche and they knock that niche out of the park.
Yeah. I wonder, because right now it's only on the PlayStation 5 and PC. I wonder if, they'll do PS4 maybe, if they want to get more people involved. Because while it is like a very good, like graphic-wise, it's not like too heavy, you need the PS5 hardware to do it. But honestly, like over the, I think I texted you and Kieran about it. This is making me want to be fiscally irresponsible and buy a PS5. I want to be involved. I want to join the fight, man. I want to spend. I want to save Super Earth.
Hoorah! And on that bombshell, I don't know. Any final thoughts about anything? We've kind of covered there's so much gaming news.
Yeah,
it's been very heavy gaming couple of weeks.
Yeah, just to peel back the curtain, we had to cut stuff from today's episode because there was just too much things.
Dude, we could have talked about like Rockstar and GTA 6.
We saw the streamer awards to talk about.
it's been very news heavy week, but I think we covered like the major points.
Yeah.
So I'm Bjorn,
I'm Hushav,
and this has been
the Underleveled podcast.
minus Kieran.
R.I.P.
We hope that his spine recovers very soon. You sure did do that.